Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the content patch for the 13th of August 2013. My name is TotalBiscuit with today's gaming news and comment. Coming up in the show, Ken Levine claims that the first part of Part 1 of the BioShock Rapture DLC will not include combat. Home Gold will allow families to share Xbox One's premium features, says Microsoft. And one of the biggest events in esports history, the International 3, concludes. All this in the OC Remix track of the day is coming your way right about now. Ken Levine's been speaking in detail to IGN on the subject of the forthcoming Burial at Sea DLC for BioShock Infinite. The first of two parts of the DLC will be coming a little bit later in the year, and apparently this first part will only feature combat in the second half of the DLC. It's a little bit confusing because some people thought that the entire Part 1 of Burial at Sea wouldn't include combat. That's not actually true. It seems that the first part of Part 1 won't include combat, so it basically means a quarter of the DLC will not be combat-orientated. It will include exploration and solving problems with the wits of Booker and Elizabeth. This also, as you might imagine, includes a significant amount of exploration-based content, and the interview also went on to describe, but not in exactly great detail, the idea that some infinite technologies and mechanics would be brought over to the Rapture setting, which one would assume also includes the two-weapon system and the regenerating shield, although we don't know that for certain. Alright, well, I do like the idea of having some BioShock content without combat, because I've said it time and again, I believe that the combat is the weakest part of BioShock Infinite. I also believe that BioShock Infinite would have been a better game if it wasn't a first-person shooter in the first place. My concern, really, when you announce that, hey, the first half of the game isn't going to be combat, you're going to be using your wits to solve things, is, well, to what degree? Because, honestly, I feel that the game doesn't really have the means to do that in the current Infinite setting. I would have said it would have actually worked better in BioShock 1. If you think about it, the idea of being able to access security systems and set traps and things like that, that's the kind of thing that could have worked in that situation, but Infinite doesn't have those kind of mechanics, so I have to wonder if they're going to be reintroducing them, or if it's simply going to be a case of, hey, walk around Rapture for a couple of hours and occasionally talk to people, because if that's all it is, then that's just a museum tour. That's not a game. That's Dear Esther in Rapture, which is definitely not what I'm looking for right there. What are they going to do to actually make this work? If we look at the non-combat sections in Infinite, then what you will see is generally some fairly boring content that could have very easily been a cutscene, and more often than not is. The idea that the control is essentially taken away from you, or that there is a situation and a sequence whereby it looks like you have control, but in reality, you're just on this linear rail. I feel, honestly, that the lack of ability to do anything beyond that could severely hinder the first part of this DLC. BioShock does not have a good stealth system, for instance. There's no way of really making that work. It doesn't really have a good conversation system. It doesn't have one at all, in fact. We've noticed that there is the ability to make certain choices. We saw like maybe 3, possibly 4 in total in BioShock Infinite, so there could be that, but even then, that's very, very basic, frankly. Are they going to be introducing some new mechanics that actually make this work? Because if they don't, then I feel the nostalgia for Rapture is very clearly going to wear off rather rapidly, and then people are just going to be going and saying, oh god, this is boring, where's the combat? Just not what you want to resort to, it really isn't. That's not your game's strong point anyway. But honestly, they didn't build the game around anything else. They built it around the idea of shooting people, so how can they change that? Can they make that work? We'll see. We'll see. I mean, I'm very curious to see how the Rapture DLC plays out. I'm looking forward to trying it, but until they flesh out the idea of what the first half of this game is going to be, then I'm going to remain on the fence about it, because I, at this point, don't believe that Infinite and its mechanics and the systems within its first-person shooter world will actually work outside of shooting people in the face, which is very unfortunate indeed. This is not an RPG, as much as I wish that it was. Microsoft has announced the Home Gold feature for Xbox One, which will allow families to share Xbox One Premium features. What this basically means is that if you have an Xbox Gold account of some description on the machine, you will be able to utilize the features of that Gold with other user accounts on the system. This will, I would imagine, be mostly used for families who will want to have one Xbox Gold account, and also, of course, for roommates who happen to be sharing a console. It also means that you'll be able to log into your Xbox Gold account on other people's machines who may not have Xbox Gold, and as a result, you will be able to use features such as co-op multiplayer. This also means that the digital library of players that have Xbox Gold will be shared with other users on the machine regardless of what account they happen to be logged into at the time, which makes perfect sense when you think about it. It's interesting that this is being announced as a feature because, again, I see it very much as being a solution to a problem of Microsoft's own making. The very idea that Xbox Gold, for instance, the ability to access multiplayer games, would be bound to a specific user account on the machine rather than the machine just boggles my mind. I don't really see the ability to log in on your friend's system and say, hey, I got Xbox Gold, it's okay. It's $5 a month. In reality, your friend's probably gonna have it, let's be honest. With so many features restricted, not having Xbox Gold and actually having an Xbox One is not really an option, and Microsoft made it that way. The idea that prior to this, you would have your Gold account bound to one specific user account and someone else on the same machine using a different account would have to get their own Gold or log into your account is just incredibly stupid. It's just so much convoluted nonsense. It really is. I think the idea, for instance, that I would have a PC and that someone else in my house would use the PC, but when they use the PC, they wouldn't be able to access the internet or watch Netflix or play online games is ludicrous. It's a ridiculous notion. Same thing with even the PlayStation 3. Oh, I logged into my user account. Suddenly, I can't play all the games that are on this system. What? No! Of course you can. Even with PlayStation Plus, yeah, the stuff that's free on PlayStation Plus that relies on that PlayStation Plus account, sub-accounts can access and play those games no problem whatsoever. You wouldn't even think that would even be an issue. The game is on the machine, of course I can play it. Of course I can play it. Why couldn't I? It's funny, really, because I guess the best comparison that could be made when it comes to games on systems is Steam, for instance. If you're not logged into the right Steam account, most of the games you can't play. And I suppose as a PC gamer, I can kind of relate to that. But then again, I don't share my system with people, so it's not really a factor. It just seems to me that if you're going to have a system in your home, then you should be able to access everything that's on that system. I think maybe it comes down to me growing up with the idea that I had to share my consoles and my computer with my brother. Yeah? I used to share my room with my brother until I moved out to university, and we shared pretty much everything. We bought our first console together, we bought games together, we always had to negotiate with each other as to which game we were going to get. I usually won the fight on that one. I remember having to argue with him, actually. I wanted to get Speed Devils for the Dreamcast, and he wanted to get Tokyo Highway Challenge instead. And I am proud to say that I argued in favor of Speed Devils and won, because that game was awesome! God damn, I loved that. It was fantastic. Some people may have known it as Speedbusters American Highways. Speed Devils is the name in the UK, and it was so good. I absolutely loved that game. And as it turns out, Tokyo Highway Challenge sucked. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Although I will give him credit. He did argue in favor of Trick Style soon after that, and he was right. Trick Style was awesome. Absolutely phenomenal game. I'm kind of surprised that people didn't like it. It was a bunch of fun to play. But the idea that someone growing up in the same situation as me wouldn't have had access to the same games as my brother or whatever is just ludicrous. And there's way more now, quite frankly, because you've got access to Netflix and all of these other online services. Again, a service which is very, very easy to use across the home. We've got, 5 or 6 Netflix-enabled devices in this house, and all sorts of things like that. It does make sense to allow for all of this stuff to work on one machine. I don't see any reason not to, and it's kind of getting ridiculous that stuff is so segregated by user accounts and those kind of ideas, but Well, I'm glad that that isn't going to be a problem on Xbox One, just yet another nonsense feature that you need to deal with. And finally, the Dota 2 International 3 tournament has concluded, one of the largest esports events of all time, with a rather huge prize pool of $2.87 million, with the grand prize being $1.43 million for the top team, which, as it turns out, was in fact the Alliance, formerly known as No Tidehunter. The team was able to bring down the former international champions Na'Vi in a very close 3-2 series, which ended in some crazy split-pushing action, and it was a nail-biter throughout the entire tournament. Unofficial numbers for the viewership put it just above 1 million concurrents, including Chinese streams as well as the in-game client, although it's going to be difficult to know exactly how many people watched the event, especially considering we don't have access to uniques until Valve decides to come out with all the numbers and information. The tournament was also shown in part on Russian and Swedish TV. I had the pleasure of watching this event, and my god, it was absolutely fantastic, and I didn't really expect to enjoy it as much as I did. I play a lot of Dota 2, as you're well aware, but I'm not a big follower of the Dota 2 esports scene. I follow StarCraft 2 for the most part, but the International 3 was kind of a time where I decided to put that aside and say, look, right, this is the Super Bowl of esports right now, let's go and watch that. It'll be interesting to see exactly how it compares to the numbers of the forthcoming Season 3 championships for League of Legends, and of course Riot has booked out the Staples Center for that, so it's no doubt going to have a larger crowd simply due to its capacity, but how much it'll actually receive online remains to be seen. The Season 2 finals for League of Legends did slightly beat out the International 3, with Riot claiming over 1.1 million concurrent users at the peak and 8.2 million unique viewers in total. Whatever the case, it would appear that the arms race is very clearly heating up between the two games when it comes to capturing esports demographics and viewership. The International 3 this year was just a pleasure to watch for me, and it was mostly due to the fact that they had fantastic production, they had really good filling of downtime, phenomenal filling of it, really. The analysis panel, the consistent interviews, the very professional host, who is, of course, an actual news anchor in the US, which really helped out with the professional side of things. The camera work was great, the production was great, the commentary was great, the games were absolutely phenomenal. There was so little to complain about, and the introduction of the compendium was perhaps the most innovative thing that I've actually ever seen when it comes to esports. The idea that not only can you get the user base to help you crowdfund the event and actually raise the prize pool to ludicrous levels, but you can also give them a means of really getting into it and getting so much information, being able to play compendium matches, for instance, playing the same hero composition as the pro teams, being able to stamp players into your compendium just like you would collect stickers as a kid for your favorite sports stars. International 3 fantasy teams, all supported through the game. The acquisition of pennants to support your favorite team. In-game viewing. It's phenomenal. It really is such an amazing advancement when it comes to esports viewership. It is far and away beyond anything else that currently exists in the scene. And quite frankly, as a StarCraft 2 commentator, I'm extremely jealous of the kind of stuff that the Dota guys actually have available to them. I would kill for even half of those features when it came down to StarCraft 2. I've got to be honest, like, watching the success of the International 3 and watching the massive leap in viewers between International 2 and International 3, with Dota 2 having been officially released now, and it being by far the most played game on Steam every single day, I think we are now getting to the point where I can safely say that I do believe Dota 2 will pass League of Legends esports viewership within 12 months. So by the time the International 4 rolls around again, I think that will get to the point where more people are watching Dota 2 than are watching League of Legends in an esports capacity. And there's a lot of different reasons for me thinking that, and it doesn't mean that Dota 2 is a better game than League of Legends. I enjoy Dota 2 more than I enjoy League of Legends. I also enjoy watching it more than I enjoy watching League of Legends, which is kind of a big thing. I think that the ability to view a game and not have it be a really big confusing mess helps a lot, but I also feel that that stuff's kind of subjective. I think there's less ability spam within Dota 2, which is kind of true, because generally speaking, it's not as focused on spell casting, the idea that there's nothing in the game which actively reduces the cooldown of abilities, for instance, whereas there is in League of Legends. The fact that there are a bunch of heroes that just don't have 4 active abilities, whereas everybody has, for the most part, 4 active abilities in League of Legends, with the exception of a couple of heroes. The fact that there's less color within Dota 2 compared to League of Legends, I think that all contributes to less confusing teamfights. I feel the effects have a lot of definition within Dota 2, whereas they don't necessarily within League of Legends. It can be a very confusing, colorful mess in a teamfight. But again, kind of comes down to experience. I mean, I would have thought that having played like 1,000 games of LoL, I would be able to determine what was going on in a team fight, but having watched LoL esports, I just can't. It's really confusing. I mean, it doesn't help that they keep adding champions every 2 bloody weeks, but hey. Dota 2 for me is a lot easier to watch, even though I've played significantly less games of it. I also feel that in general, Dota 2 is a more competitive game, and I think that most people would agree with me. There's just more to it. There's more complexity, there's more depth to it, and it's fine that LoL doesn't have that. In fact, it's actually a benefit to a lot of people playing it. I feel that Dota 2 probably will not have more people playing it than League of Legends ever. Yeah? I don't think the player base is ever going to actually grow above what League of Legends currently has, unless Riot makes some gigantic mistake with their game at some point in the future. While it might seem like Dota 2 is a more attractive proposition to a lot of people because all the heroes are free from the start, it is a true free-to-play game, as opposed to LoL where you have to earn those heroes. I actually think that could be a disadvantage. It's a really deep ocean. Diving into Dota 2 seems very risky. There's a lot of jellyfish and sharks and things like that. Whereas in League of Legends, you start in the kiddie pool. You start with everyone that's level 1, they don't have a bunch of runes, they have only access to the heroes that are on the free-to-play rotation, so instead of having 100 heroes to worry about, you gotta worry about like 6 or 7. And that is way easier. That's way easier to deal with. It does a way better job of introducing you to the game. Only recently, Dota 2 has actually added the limited hero pool queue, which actually isn't that helpful. I mean, it's like, oh, yeah, here's 20 heroes. Like, well, I guess that reduces the pool down and makes it a little easier for me to figure out, but the way that LoL is designed just generally has a better new user experience, and it will continue to do that, I feel, in the future. So as a direct result, I think that more people get into that. But what I would like to point out is that the ratio of players when it comes to viewers is really strong when it comes down to Dota versus LoL. Yeah? LoL has a lot of viewers for casual player streams. It's got the most in the world. You've got the most popular streamers. You've got guys in League of Legends that can actually get more viewers than a big StarCraft tournament on their own. I've seen players like Voyboy go over 50,000 concurrent viewers. That's bloody tough to do. If I go on Twitch right now, I can guarantee you the top game will be League of Legends, and I can also guarantee you that the reason for that is big streamers. Edward Lol, Curse Edward, 18,000 concurrent viewers. Dignitas Cutie Pie, 9.5 thousand concurrent viewers. Green Tea, 5.1 thousand concurrent viewers. The Rain Man, 4.3. You get the idea? Yeah, you definitely should at this stage. Dota does not have that kind of viewership. I think if I were to go online right now and put a little announcement on my channel and say, hey guys, I'm going to stream Dota 2, I would probably be the top stream out of anybody. That's not an ideal situation, but I feel that the competitive crowd within Dota 2 is more interested in esports events than the more casual crowd of League of Legends. League, thankfully, has 4 times the players, at least, so it's able to fill that out regardless, but games like StarCraft 2 and games like Dota 2 just have this higher ratio of esports viewers, which is why I think, in the long run, that within, say, a year, Dota 2 will have stronger esports viewership than League of Legends will. And I think that both scenes can very clearly coexist, and that the large player base of League of Legends will support a thriving competitive scene. And recently, Riot has been doing a phenomenal job with their esports scene. They really have. And that comes from someone that criticized them very early on for doing a bunch of stupid crap. And they did. But they have really turned things around. They are a company to look up to in that respect. And right now, it seems like Riot and Valve are both leading the way when it comes down to esports viewership and just the way to handle the scene overall. It's a good time if you happen to like 5 versus 5. If you're looking for individual games, then you're kind of crap out of luck right now, unless, of course, you like StarCraft 2, which right now is in a state where we're not really sure if it's growing slowly, stagnating, or slightly declining. We really don't know, and I guess we'll find out at the Gamescom season finals, which, thank God, do not clash with the International 3. Then we can get a real impression as to whether or not people actually care about this game, and I genuinely hope that they do. Alright folks, that's me done for the day. Thank you very much for watching the content patch. Before I go though, I would like to give you the OC Remix track of the day. It's a risky thing to remix Shadow of the Colossus, but a couple of brave OC remixers did in fact do just that. It has a fantastically atmospheric, if discordant, soundtrack at times, and that is one of the strengths of that game, the amazing atmosphere. Both of the remixes for this game are absolutely fantastic, and the one that I'd like to play for you today goes by the name of Snowfall on Forbidden Lands, which is a remix of Ko Otani's Prologue to the Ancient Land. Really awesome, awesome remix. Incredible. A collaboration between Ceili and sephfire, and I do hope that you will enjoy it very much. Thank you very much for watching, folks. I'll see you next time.